Most people think they're making decisions. They're not. They're reacting. They're following. They're copying what they see around them. They're waiting for the perfect moment, and they call all of that deciding. It isn't. Here's the honest truth. The quality of your life is not determined by your talent, your luck, or your timing. It's determined by the quality of your decisions. Every day, in small moments that don't feel important, until 5 years later when you look back and realize that was exactly where the path split. And here's what's wild. Most people are making those decisions at the lowest possible level, and they have no idea levels even exist. Niccolò Machiavelli spent his life watching people, leaders, failures, people with every advantage who lost everything, people with nothing who built something real. And what he kept finding, over and over, was never about who knew more. It was always about who thought better. That's the gap. How you think when things are unclear. How you decide when the answer isn't obvious. How you move when the stakes are real and the outcome isn't guaranteed. That's what separates the person going somewhere from the person stuck in the same place year after year. Today we're going through 6 levels of thinking, 6 ways people process decisions. Where you sit on this right now is quietly shaping your money, your relationships, your direction, whether you're paying attention to it or not. Most people never even know this ladder exists. By the end of this, you will. Before we move forward, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. I choose with clarity. Let's go. Level 1. Default decisions. This is where most people are, and most of them don't know it. At level 1, you're not really making decisions. You're just repeating. You're doing what you did yesterday, what you did last year, what you've always done. Not because you thought it through, but because it's familiar, and familiar feels safe. Same job, same spending habits, same way of responding when things go wrong, same opinions you've held for years without ever questioning them. None of it is actually chosen. It's just continued. Your brain does this on purpose. Making a real decision takes energy. Your brain is designed to conserve that energy whenever possible, so it finds the pattern it already knows and repeats it. The problem is when that same autopilot takes over the decisions that actually matter. Your career, your money, your relationships, your direction in life. These things are not static. The world around you keeps moving. And if your decisions aren't actually changing with it, you're falling behind, not because you're failing, just because you're standing still while everything else moves. Think about someone who stays in a job they hate for 5 years, not because they love it, not because they thought it through and decided to stay, just because leaving would require making a choice, and making a choice feels risky, so they just keep going back. That's level 1. And it feels like living, but it's really just old decisions running on repeat. The moment you realize this is happening, that's already growth. Most people never even get there. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I break old patterns. Level 2. Imitation-based thinking. So someone wakes up from autopilot. They look around. They think, I need to change something. And the most natural next step is to look at the people ahead of them and copy what they're doing. That's level 2. You see someone doing well, and you think, I'll do what they do. You watch a trend pick up and you think, that must be the direction. You hear about a lifestyle, a career move, a financial strategy that worked for someone, and you think, I'll follow that path. And honestly, this is better than nothing. You're paying attention now. You're trying to learn from the world around you instead of just running on habit. That's real progress. But here's the flaw. Imitation ignores context. Every decision that works does so inside a very specific situation. That person's background, resources, timing, skills, market, relationships, all of that shapes the outcome. When you copy the decision without copying the context, you're not making the same decision. You're making a surface-level version of it that's missing everything that made it work. Someone sees a person who made money in real estate and jumps in without the same capital, the same market conditions, or the same knowledge base. Someone copies a morning routine that works for a multimillionaire and wonders why their life doesn't change, not realizing that routine is the result of a completely different set of circumstances. The decision looks the same on the outside, but it isn't. And there's another problem. When you imitate what's popular, you're competing in the most crowded lane. Everyone sees the same success stories. Everyone copies the same moves. You're not getting ahead. You're joining the back of a long line. The people who actually pull away from the pack usually make decisions that look different from what everyone else is doing, because they're thinking about their specific situation, not borrowing someone else's answer. Imitation-based thinking feels safe because you can point to evidence. It worked for them. But that's not the same as thinking it through for yourself. Now, I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. My path is mine. Level 3. Information-heavy thinking. Here's where things start to look more serious. At level 3, you stop copying and start researching. You read, you watch, you listen. You ask people who know more than you. You gather data before you move. This is genuinely better. You're reducing obvious mistakes. You're building real context. You come into situations more prepared and you ask smarter questions. But level 3 has a ceiling, and a lot of people hit it without understanding why they're still stuck. The problem is this: more information does not automatically mean better decisions. There's a point where you have enough to make a reasonable call, and past that point, more information doesn't bring clarity. It brings noise. One source says one thing. Another source says the opposite. A third one adds 5 more variables, and now the decision feels more complicated than when you started. You know more. You're less clear. This is analysis paralysis, and it's extremely common among people who think they're being thorough. They keep researching, keep reading, keep gathering, and the decision keeps getting pushed back. Here's the deeper issue. Information tells you what is. It doesn't tell you what to do about it. A doctor can have every lab result and every scan, and still face a decision the data alone can't answer. A business owner can have every market report and still not know whether to launch now or wait. Data is input. The decision is still yours to make. And if you're honest about it, sometimes information gathering isn't research, it's avoidance. Deciding is uncomfortable. Research feels productive. So people keep researching instead of deciding, and they feel responsible while they do it, and time keeps passing. Level 3 thinking is real progress, but it needs a stopping point, because perfect information doesn't exist. It never will. At some point you have to ask, not, do I have everything? But do I have enough to make a reasonable move? That's the shift that gets you to level 4. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I act despite uncertainty. Level 4. Trade-off awareness. This is where thinking gets genuinely sharp. At level 4, you stop looking for the perfect option. You accept that every choice has a cost, and the real question is which cost you can live with. Most people understand opportunity cost in theory. Level 4. Thinkers actually use it when they decide. Here's what it sounds like in your head at this level. Not just, what does this give me? But what does this cost me? And what am I walking away from by choosing this over something else? When you take a job, you're not just gaining a salary. You're trading 40+ hours a week, your energy, your time, your flexibility, your mornings, every other thing you could have done with that time, gone. When you say yes to something, you're automatically saying no to everything else that slot of time could have held. When you take on a financial commitment, a lease, a loan, you're not just accessing something. You're reducing your future options by whatever that payment demands every month. Every decision is a trade, always. There's no version of deciding that doesn't include giving something up. And once you really accept that, two things happen. First, you decide faster, because you're not waiting for an option with no downside anymore. You know no such option exists, so you just evaluate which trade you're most okay with and you move. Second, you have fewer regrets, not because things always go well, but because you went in with open eyes. You knew what you were trading, you accepted it. So when something doesn't go perfectly, you're not blindsided. You understood the deal. Machiavelli thought this way constantly. He never analyzed a decision as just a move towards something. He always saw it as simultaneously moving away from something else. Every alliance gained meant another door closed. Every enemy made was a calculation about what it cost versus what it produced. That dual awareness, what you gain and what you give up, is what this level produces. And here's what's freeing about it. When you accept that every path has trade-offs, you stop feeling like you're failing when things aren't perfect. You chose one set of costs over another. That's what a decision is. Stop looking for the path with no friction. It doesn't exist. Start looking for the friction you're most willing to deal with. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I trade wisely always. Level 5, probability thinking. This level changes how you relate to outcomes entirely. At level 5, you stop asking, will this work? And start asking, how likely is this to work? Sounds like a small shift. It isn't. Will this work? Is a yes or no question. And since you almost never have a guaranteed yes, that question usually either forces false confidence or freezes you completely. Neither is useful. How likely is this to work is a different question. It takes you out of the certainty trap and puts you into realistic thinking. Now you're evaluating odds, you're thinking in probabilities, and that's a completely different way to operate. Here's what that looks like practically. Say you're thinking about starting something on the side while keeping your current job. If you ask, will this work? You might talk yourself out of it. Most side projects don't take off. That's discouraging, hard to move forward. But if you ask, how likely is this to work for me specifically? Now you actually think it through. What skills do you have that are relevant here? What time can you realistically commit? Have you tested the idea even in a small way? What's the actual market for what you're offering? Now you're not looking at some vague general stat. You're assessing your actual situation, and you might find the odds are reasonable, not certain, not guaranteed, but good enough to try. Or you might find they're not, and that's useful too, because now you know what needs to change before the odds shift. This is how professionals in high-stakes fields think. A doctor doesn't say, this treatment will definitely work. They say, based on this patient's situation, this gives the best odds. An investor doesn't say, this will go up. They say, the risk-to-reward ratio is in my favor here. A coach doesn't say, we'll definitely win. They say, this game plan gives us the best shot. That's not weakness or hedging, that's precise thinking. And emotionally, it changes things too. When you think in probabilities, Outcomes don't hit you as hard when they go wrong. Because you never told yourself they were guaranteed. You made a smart bet. Sometimes smart bets lose. That's not a failure of your decision. That's just how odds work. Here's something most people miss. Making a high probability decision that doesn't work out is still good decision-making. If you make 10 decisions that each had a 70% chance of success and 3 of them fail, you didn't decide badly. You decided well. The math just played out. And refusing to act because success isn't certain. That's often the worst move, because sometimes doing nothing is the highest risk choice of all. I want you to drop this affirmation in the comments. Odds favor the bold. Level 6, second-order thinking. This is where serious decision-making actually lives. At level 6, you don't just think about what happens when you make a choice. You ask, and then what? What happens after that? What happens after that? You trace the decision forward. You follow the chain of consequences past the first result and see where it actually leads. And when you start doing this honestly, a lot of decisions that look good fall apart. And some decisions that look hard or uncomfortable start making complete sense. Let me make it concrete. Someone is in a relationship that clearly isn't working. They know it. But staying feels easier than leaving. Leaving is painful, disruptive, emotionally exhausting. So first-level thinking says, staying is easier. Stay. Second-order thinking asks, okay, if I stay, what does my life look like in a year? In 2 years? Am I in the same place? What am I not doing because I'm managing this situation? Who am I becoming while I stay in something I know isn't right? Now, easier doesn't look so easy. It looks like the first step of a long, slow, difficult road you've been walking without realizing it. Flip it. Someone is avoiding a hard conversation with someone they care about. Something real that's been building. First-level thinking says, that's going to be uncomfortable. It might go badly. Skip it. Second-order thinking asks, what happens if I don't have it? We stay in the same pattern. The issue grows. The distance between us grows. The unsaid things build up until they come out at a much worse moment in a much worse way. Now the uncomfortable conversation is actually the less painful option. You just had to follow the chain far enough to see it. This is what level 6 does. It stretches decisions out across time, because almost every decision has a short-term result and a long-term consequence, and they're often pointing in completely opposite directions. What's hard now frequently leads somewhere good. What's easy now frequently leads somewhere painful. Most people never follow the chain long enough to see that. They evaluate the immediate result and stop there. Machiavelli analyzed this constantly. He watched leaders make popular decisions, giving people what they wanted, avoiding hard calls, choosing short-term approval over long-term stability. And he watched those same leaders lose everything later because of it. He watched other leaders make cold, difficult decisions that nobody liked and build something that actually lasted. The difference wasn't luck, it was time horizon. Now bring this into your daily life. When you're deciding whether to spend money or save it, level 6 asks where you are financially in 5 years on each path. When you're deciding whether to build a new skill, it asks where you are professionally in 3 years with it versus without it. When you're deciding whether to say something honest or keep the peace, it asks what your relationship looks like a year from now on each path. When you're deciding whether to take a risk, it asks where each path leads over time, not just what happens next week. The gap between people who consistently move forward and people who consistently stay stuck is almost always this: one person evaluates decisions one step out. The other follows the chain 3 or 4 steps. That's it. That's the whole difference. And here's one more thing. Once you operate at level 6, you start seeing other people's short-term moves clearly. You can see when someone is taking an easy win now that's going to cost them badly later. In business, in negotiation, in relationships, that awareness is a serious edge. You're seeing consequences they haven't thought about yet. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I think steps ahead. 6 levels. Let's be straight about what this means. Most people are not stuck because of bad luck or bad circumstances. They're stuck because they don't trust their own thinking, and because they don't trust it, they delay decisions. They copy someone else's. They drown in information without moving. They wait for the perfect option that doesn't exist. They treat uncertainty like a stop sign. And while they wait, life moves forward without them. Machiavelli kept coming back to one thing across everything he wrote. The people who actually shape their outcomes are not the ones who have perfect information. They're not the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who can make a call in the middle of uncertainty and stand behind it. That's the actual skill, not knowing more, deciding and owning what you decided. Because when you fully own a decision, when you made it with your eyes open, knowing the trade-offs, thinking through the consequences, you move differently after you make it. You're not spending energy on regret or second-guessing. You move forward with it. You fix what needs fixing. You learn from the outcome, and you make the next decision better. That's the real compounding. Not just money or business. The quality of your thinking compounds over time. 5 years from now, the person who's been thinking at level 5 or 6, even imperfectly, even getting things wrong sometimes, is in a completely different place than the person still stuck at level 1 or 2. Not because one is smarter, because of how they thought, every day, in ordinary moments, about ordinary choices. You can't see that gap in a single moment, but over years, it becomes undeniable. Now, if this video actually gave you something real, do something with that energy right now. Hit like. That's how this channel keeps growing and keeps making content that actually matters. If someone in your life is stuck, making the same decisions, getting the same results, wondering why nothing changes, share this video with them. You don't have to say anything. Just send it. Let them draw their own conclusions. And if you want more content like this, subscribe to this channel. Hit the bell so you don't miss it. New videos go up regularly and none of them waste your time. Here's what I want to leave you with. You're going to face a decision today, maybe small, maybe significant, and you're going to face it without complete information, without a guarantee, without a clear right answer. That's not going to change, ever. What can change is how you meet that moment. Better thinking doesn't hand you certainty you don't have. It gives you a way to move through uncertainty with direction, with intention, with something behind your choices besides fear, habit, or whatever everyone around you seems to be doing. And over time, not in one decision, not in 1 month, that changes the shape of your life. The pattern of decisions you live with is the life you end up with. You're already making decisions. The question is just, at what level? Go make something.